mun puolessa, että menee molempiin.
Joo, siis pistin voice activationin päälle tohon.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, welcome everybody. We are here at Silverstone Circuit Historic Grand Prix, and tonight's program is as follows. We are going to make a baseline setup and a B-lap for the Pacific Majors Classic British Grand Prix. And I am Ossian Puhakka, in case you didn't recognize me by the voice and the Twitch channel and the name on the bottom half of the corner and everything else. And joining me is two-time Classic Lotus Grand Prix Series Champion, Series Series Champion, Lotus 79 aficionado, one of the most talented and professional historic racing drivers on the whole service, and a professional Jesus Christ lookalike Tapani Linnaluoto. Welcome.
Hi.
So, where should we start? I believe you had some sort of a baseline setup, older baseline setup that we can use, and then let's talk through the process of setting up the Lotus 79.
Yeah, it's a bit an old one, but I'm just clicking around, making sure it kind of works today.
Okay, can you share it to me so I can, and tell me what you do so the viewers can see it?
Sure. Just a moment. Actually, it's a bit weird. I have to click around somewhere. So old, I have to guesstimate something. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, so what are the differences between older Lotus 79 setups and the new ones? I assume tire pressures, maybe ride heights, what else is there?
Yeah, the tire pressures are much lower today. Can you remember what they should be now? Hot pressures?
Hot pressures around 160, 165, so I would guess in this weather maybe 131, 134 kPa cold pressers. Somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, let's try 131.
Yeah. Those are good basic guidelines anyway, with any car really. 131 works with most cars. I think one of the few sole exceptions is maybe the Mazda and the cars that you cannot put the tire pressure so low. So Mazda MX-5 is one of the few exceptions, but in general 131 is a good guesstimate starting point, and then you can work from here. From there, rather.
Yeah.
Hyvää iltaa, Madi. Vähän erilainen striimi tällä kertaa. Tehdään Lotus 79 baseline setupia Pacific Majorsiin. Enkunkielinen striimi. 2 suomalaista puhuu englantia, voi pojat.
Yeah.
How do you know when the tire pressures are too high or too low? When you have the garage open and the screen that I have open, the tire screen, and you run a couple of laps, how do you know if the pressures are too high or too low? What are the values you should look at?
Well, today it's pretty much from experience and experiment with different tire pressures. And you just try which is fastest.
Okay, so yeah. So there is no real like you shouldn't look too much at the temperatures or the tread remaining or such.
If you know the car by heart, you can look, and you know how the temperatures work with the car, you could do that. But if you don't, well then tough luck, you can't do it.
And also there's other things.
I'm hoping the next version of the new tire model will fix some things with the temperatures.
Yeah, especially the outside temps, which are way too low, I think.
Well, I'm not sure if they're low or if the measurements are taken at a point which doesn't tell much.
Oh yeah, that's true. If it's somewhere like the next to the rim, then perhaps yes.
Do you have favorite damper settings?
Yeah, damper settings I usually put somewhere around. So basically, I have a bit of a different approach usually to dampers. I try to use somewhere around 4 to 6 on the bump stiffness, and then double the value to the rebound stiffness at front, which is a really a trick I use really to stabilize the front end and make it turn a little bit better at the exit of the corner.
So 5 and 10?
Yeah, 5 and 10 should work here actually.
What about rear?
Rear I usually try to use the same value as in the front, or maybe one lower, but usually the same value. And 10 on the rebound, I don't use that much rebound because that prohibits the car in the corner entry. So because it doesn't allow the rear to like kick up, it limits the rake on the corner entry if you put too much rebound stiffness on the rear. So maybe somewhere around 5 and 6, 5 and 5 even.
Oh, well, try 5 and 6.
Yeah.
I haven't played with the dampers for a long while, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
So,
but Silverstone is maybe a bit of a different circuit because it's quite flat, but it's also a lot of high-speed corners, especially on this layout. But then again, you can't run it too low because there's a couple of bumps here and there, and it's actually one of the more interesting tracks, in my opinion, to find a setup. And I say interesting, that means difficult in this case. It looks easy. The layout looks easy. It's like, okay, yeah, put as little wing as possible as long as it turns, but it's not that simple. Not that simple. Especially the couple of low-speed corners on the last section where you need mechanical grip, and this car doesn't have any, so it's difficult.
Yeah, well, I will share this one. It may not be quite there. I don't know what wing angles. We have to experiment a little. But I will share it, and it was a 4-year-old setup I started from, so
okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I shared it.
Yeah, let's see what happens here. So, what we have here is a baseline setup, just quickly modified. This is the first part of the process always. Usually you find some old setup, either from the forums or your own archives or something someone has shared a long while ago. It might be old, so you have to come up with a baseline first and foremost. And what we did with Tapani, we went through the process which we normally go anyway, either by alone or by the two of us, which is just make a baseline, create some basic values and work from there. So in this case we have some very, let's just say, simple values, simple safe values.
Yeah, something to start from.
Yeah, minus 1.5 camber at the front, minus 1 at the rear.
Yeah, they're maybe a bit higher than usual, but there's a lot of high-speed corners.
Yeah, so and you use a lot of camber these days. You actually, I had...
Yeah, okay.
Last week I had on my Lotus 79 setup for the... What the hell was the track? Sebring. I had minus 1.7 at the front. And
yeah,
minus
sure,
1.2 at the rear. So, yeah, you use a lot of these days. Basic wing angles, you look at these, they are very simple. Wing wicker at 0.5 inches at the front, wing angle at 5 degrees. Same at the rear with the wicker angle, 5.8 at the rear. So it's there's a little bit more wing at the rear than at the front. Now that's something I don't personally normally do, but that's personal preference. We are not doing a hot lap, oh my god, world record setup. We are doing a simple baseline setup that everybody could use and everybody feels safe with. Henceforth, we also have, at the differential, we have drive ramp angle at 70 and the coast ramp angle at 55.
Well,
yeah, go on, explain the differential.
It could be that we need a bit less drive ramp angle because it's gonna be grippy and you don't want that inside wheel to rotate too much.
Should we try the 70 at first? And
yeah, sure.
Work from there. So okay.
What was the coast angle?
55.
Okay, that could work in a high-speed current.
Yeah. So we are now on board with Tapani. Let's change the angle a little bit.
And times are extremely slippery at first because it's a cold weather. Track is only 22 degrees. That's by iRacing standards. That's cold. In Finnish standards, that's normal summer. I feel very slow. I have a full tank of fuel, so we probably have to go much less wing. But I'll try for a while and see what happens.
Yes, also thanks Takaruske for the host at Twitch, I appreciate it. I also increased the volume of Tapani a little bit because he's a silent guy. So, now that you go to a full lap, let's talk through the track. We now talked about the car a little bit. It's a Lotus 79. It's a full tank of fuel, which we actually don't have much experience with. You usually run around 60 to 70 liters with this car. 45 minute race distance.
Yeah, the high fuel isn't that much of a problem. If you could set up the balance kind of keeps together over the race distance. But if you have a step that's not quite there, you might need to work around a little.
Little bit of a issue there.
And make some changes with brake bias and A or B settings.
Yeah. So, Maggot's, Beckett's Chapel, this is the old Silverstone. High-speed corners, how do you approach them? Like, we can see your RPM and your wheel movements, but how do you approach them as a driver? Like, just when you initially take your first laps with a new setup in the 79, what are the things one should feel around? And what are the things one should take note? Or notice, rather.
Well, Beckett is a great corner complex. You kind of bleed off the speed gradually to the slowest point on the last right-hander. And you just go down with the gears to third gear there and just try to get a best possible entry and exit from there. I'm not sure what I could say more about that.
Yeah, and the last corners. Little bit difficult now, trying to get the power down when you have 150 kilos of...
No, it's much easier then, because you have
really?
the mass.
Okay.
You can't... Well, you have more mass, less power to weight ratio. Missing that turn one.
133.1.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's terrible, but you have full tank of fuel. So, coming to another part in this race, which I think some people will speculate on. We know in real life, in 1978, they didn't yet have pit stops. Brabham reinvented the pit stop a couple of years later, when they started to do pit stops with the turbo cars. Bernie Ecclestone was leading the team back then, so... would you recommend taking a pit stop or no? Do you need... How about the tires? What do you think about the tires? And just from feeling around. Will they last, will they not last?
Well, they lasted in 1978 and 1979, so, and they do last in iRacing too. So, no, you don't need tires, but regarding the fuel, I don't really know if it's faster to pit or not. You'd have to compare the lap times and see how much time you lose with the heavier fuel load.
Okay, so you basically open the Excel and start working.
Well, you can do that.
Yeah. So, but basic approach, just full tank of fuel and just going for it.
Well,
is the simpler
I'm not sure
way.
if it's quite full tank, but
it's not far, mate.
it's probably quite close to full tank.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm having like 1 million laps of fuel, so.
Like 1 million. Wow. So we got in the race we had what was it? 64 laps, I think.
Yeah, I think I have too much fuel now.
Okay.
I have to check my telemetry after a couple of laps.
Oh yeah, telemetry. When we come to the topic of telemetry and using telemetry now, in 1978, Tapani, did they have or did they not have telemetry software in the cars?
Well, I suppose not.
Yes. So if we are going strictly on authenticity, then...
you can do it like they did in our time. You can check how much fuel you have in the tank before a stint, then you run a few laps, see how much there is left.
Yeah, true. But, okay, let's be real here. People use whatever advantage they can get. And in this case, we are 40 years removed exactly from 1978. Roughly around the time 40 years ago was this race. And we have telemetry, we are racing a simulation, and we can use some of the advantages that they didn't have in real life. Like the advantage of actually surviving a crash, for example. Which wasn't that sure thing back 40 years ago. For a lot of reasons. Now, so telemetry. You use Motec as software.
Yep.
Back these days. I know you used to use Atlas, but it's now Motec. So you record telemetry, and then you put it to mu, which is the basic thing. You put it to mu in order to convert it from the iRacing telemetry file to a file that Motec understands. You load it up, 10 watt. What do you look at? What are the important things to look at? Because for me, and for a lot of people I know, it's just gonna be a lot of numbers and squiggly lines. So
well, regarding the fuel, you can just look at the lap summary is how much fuel you used each lap, and you can calculate the laps remaining and stuff like that. It's quite easy. And regarding the Lotus 79 specifically, ride heights are quite important to look at. So you know it's not dragging on the ground too much. I was dragging early on a bit. I don't think now with high tire pressures, I don't think it's dragging too much anymore, but it might be. So it's one thing to check.
And why is it important to have the ride heights as low as possible, yet not dragging?
Yeah, so most of the downforce in Lotus 79 is generated by the underbody wing, or well, basically there are two Venturi channels on the side of the car, and they generate most of the downforce, and they do it very efficiently. And you get the most downforce with low ride heights. There is a bit of a play there, so you can make sure that you don't drag too much. So of course, if you drag on the ground or on the bumps, you lose some speed that way. So you want to have as efficient aerodynamics as possible.
Yeah,
and the actual wings on the car are much less efficient, so you try to not run too high wings.
Yeah, and as we can see, we are now watching Tapani from the outside view, or well, we are watching some fog where there is a thing that is orange and white, also gunning around the track. So let's put this one off so we can actually have the camera moving. There we go. And so as you can see from the outside view, the Lotus 79 is, it looks fairly simple to drive. You know, you can see Tapani is making clear lines, he's hitting the apexes somewhere at least. I think he found one apex on that lap, which is lucky. More than he usually finds, that's just kidding. And, well, you can see that it's not doing too much, but one more thing is that some eagle-eyed viewers, more experienced viewers may notice that you are not using the curbs too much. Here more than usually, but not too much. Why?
Yeah, the curbs in Silverstone are quite benign and flat, like in Maggots and Begets. You can just take them. But if you have higher curbs, you kind of want to go around them, because when you get the car off the ground, of course you lose the downforce, probably a bit less than in real life, and the car can also get a bit bouncy.
Yeah, and the microphone is again screaming at my ears. Bloody mic gain is something like +8 at default, and when you jump on board the Lotus, it kills your ears.
The track actually feels very grippy right now. The weather is, well, after you get the tires warmed up, it's quite nice to drive.
Yeah.
Even with this fuel load. I probably have way too much wing.
Do you think you can push a little bit and get a B-lap for us next lap by?
Yeah, sure. You mean I'm not pushing right now?
No, you're not. You're just cruising around, man. Come on.
Okay. Let's try.
Yeah, let's try. I'll just let you guys listen and enjoy this one.
Woo! Well, that's that for pushing. Yeah, let's come and see.
Damn it, man! I was thinking, okay, maybe I can sneak and go for a pee or something in the meanwhile, because I had to go for like 10 minutes, and then I was like, okay, let's push it, and you crash into the first corner. Okay.
Right.
Cut. So. Even
Yeah,
aliens do mistakes, as it turns out.
Yeah, it's the exit of the turn 1. It's treacherous. There's curb you can use, but if you go wider than the curb, the car starts to bounce and you can't keep the throttle on like I did. I was just hoping it would go straight, but it didn't.
Yeah, so yeah, you're just a little bit wide. So, okay. Another thing we should touch right now is we have a baseline for the race, which we adjust in a moment's time. But another thing that people will ask about, and people will be asking about a lot of times, is making a qualifying setup. Now, talk us through the process. We'll talk through the process of turning a race setup, especially one like this, into a qualifying setup. What are the values you need to adjust? Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. Fuel.
Sure, take off the fuel. Make sure you have just enough fuel for the qualifying laps. I'm not sure how many you are going to take. So, how many is it in majors?
Oh, let's see. Qualifying. Open qualifying 60 minutes.
Yeah, but how many fast laps?
Open qualifying 60 minutes.
Oh, all right. But because of the weather, you probably are getting the fastest lap only. You need to warm up the tires first, so you probably need a couple of, maybe even 3 warm-up laps before you are going to shoot for a fast one.
How much did you get? How much was your fuel use, roughly?
Let me see.
So we can calculate based off that.
Yeah. It was in liters.
Yeah, in liters.
It was 2.05.
So that times 4, 8.2. So 9.1 is good enough.
Right. Let me see for the race fuel.
That's 2 imperial gallons for the imperial unit.
So the race fuel should be 130 something.
Okay, 130 something.
It's not exactly 131, and probably the fuel use goes down after you burn off fuel, and you have a little bit less drag on the straights. So 131 is probably good enough.
Yeah.
For my style of driving.
So 131. So we got tires at 131 and fuel at 131. Now, other thing, because we have a lot of international people and American people also, as well as the Brits, that don't use metric units. We in Finland use metric units because they are the best, but they're the most simple ones for us. But they use imperial units. Now, what you see at fuel level here, 2.0 imperial gallons. This one is bloody important. Why?
What?
Imperial gallons, not normal gallons. Lotus
oh yeah, that they are not the US gallons.
Yes, exactly. So what is the difference between US gallon and imperial gallon? Please, I hope you know this one because I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't remember out of hand. There are different sizes. But,
that's Google in good use. You can hear it in the background.
Right, so...
Let me just remember. Oh yeah, here you go. Thank you, Mr. Google.
Imperial gallon. It's 4.54 liters. US liquid gallon is 3.78, so it's a bit more.
So, in other words, if you are doing calculations based on US gallons and this is imperial gallons, is the...
Yeah, that...
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, the imperial gallon is like 10 pounds.
Okay.
Of water. That was the original definition, but of course it's not that anymore.
Yeah. So, there we go, got that one out of the way as well. And other thing when you're converting to a qualifying setup, now we got the fuel level roughly. It's 2 imperial gallons or 9.1 liters, whichever you may prefer. Ride heights, those should be adjusted as well, right?
Yeah. Of course, if you take out fuel, the springs make the car go higher. And you can adjust for that. Just check the ride heights before and make them the same afterwards if you have them right on your race fuel setup.
Yeah. So, did they feel good? Were they good on the race fuel?
Well, it was dragging slightly at first, but of course it's a long race, so it's going to rise a few millimeters just from burning the fuel. So it's a good with a long race like this. It's a good practice to try your race setup with full fuel and with very little fuel. Run enough laps to get your turns to racing temperatures and see the handling after that.
Exactly. So we got 23.8 millimeters at the front, 39 millimeters at the rear. Now you don't have to remember the exact values because we will be sharing the baseline we make later. But just to give us a rough idea of how it looks, so we have to actually adjust it quite a lot
Yeah, the
to meet those values.
front right height could be a bit low on the last run. See.
And also remember, one important thing is to remember to check your toe-in values as well as the camber values after adjusting ride height and the spring perch offset. Because often when you put the car lower, it can increase the camber as well as increase the toe out on the front. So it can mess with those values. So you want to maybe double check them, just remember, right?
Yeah, sure. Especially if you make larger changes to spring rates and ride heights. It's and of course if you change caster or something, you have to check cambers also and toe.
Yep.
But just for making fuel adjustment, it's probably not necessary. But you can check.
Yep.
The change is probably not much more than 1 decimal place.
So tire pressures? Any changes?
You probably want to use a click or two higher to get them to the. Did you say 160, 165?
Yeah, 160. It depends on the track, but 160, 165 is the
I
you
suppose
want to aim for.
the race pressures was a bit high. I'm going to go down to 127, so maybe 134 in qualifying. If you have plenty of laps to make the qualifying, you can put in a bit more fuel, get the tires nice and warm with several warm-up laps, and then push it. Or of course you can just push it along. In this weather, you can push the tires very much.
So let's one more thing about the tires. In general, there's one more thing I want to talk to you about regarding this car in particular, but the tires first. When we even discussed the idea of that you can run multiple laps in qualifying, it's alright. That's pretty alien to a lot of people who are used to just running a slow out lap and then one absolute blister and hope the tires make it to the end. But these ones, you can just run it seems. And
yeah,
they
in
are
this
also
weather,
a little...
in a very hot weather, it's different. But you need to get them into temperature before they grip.
Yeah, and another thing about these tires, they are not quite the same as modern tires.
Yeah, they're cross-ply, hard slicks. So the tire wear is not much, and they don't heat up that easily, especially in a weather like this. You can overheat the fronts if you push it too much, but it seems I was a bit understeery on my run, but maybe not too much. It was pretty nice to drive, actually, for guesstimated setup like that.
Okay, so one last thing before we go back out on the track, the anti-roll bar, especially in the rear. That there is something about that that I want to talk, and when we convert a race setup to a qualifying setup, it's something a lot of people can easily miss. I myself personally start usually with the ARB arms around 5, and especially when you have a lot more fuel you use, you can even go to firm and have a lot more range in the adjustment. But in the qualifying setup, you may not want to be on that stiff in the rear ARB arms. How do you, if you adjust the anti-roll bar in the rear, what are some of the things you should take into account and how it affects the handling of the car as the race goes on?
Well, usually the car gets a bit looser over the race distance. It's not necessarily so if you have a bit understeer in your setup. The front tires may wear a bit more than the rear, so it keeps the balance. But if you have a neutral setup at the start, you can. It's probable that it will go loose over the race distance. So in a race you want to have adjustment range on the ARB arms. So you probably want to start on a stiffer rear arms and then go softer over the race distance when you feel like it.
Okay, that's it. Thanks. So and
in qualifying, you just put them wherever you need.
Okay, and as I said, you can adjust them also as you go on.
Yeah. It's an in-car adjustment.
So, one last thing, Tapani, tell us about, roughly for a minute, tell us about the aerodynamics of this car. I really need to use the lube.
I wish you would be more specific.
How it affects a driver. What are some of the things that differentiate a 1978 Formula 1 car from a 2018 Formula 1 car, or even 2008 Formula 1 car?
Yeah, I touched on that a bit. The wings on the car are very inefficient compared to today. They're just slabs of metal bent to some angle. So they're simple. They cause a lot of drag, and well, some you can get a lot of downforce out of them, but you lose a lot of straight line speed with it. So you don't usually go to maximum wing angle even at the lowest track possible. With Brands Hatch, you don't go maximum downforce. It's weird, but that's how it goes. Usually we go from low to medium wing angles. You go low, you need to adjust the wing weakers too. You go low enough because you run out of the angles. And well, I probably should take some wing out.
All right, thank you.
Get that straight line spin back. Yeah.
Yeah. I have returned. I have no idea what you just said, but I have returned. So, hope the viewers got that. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So we'll be going at it for roughly half an hour now. Bit over actually. So how about we do some qualifying laps and then put a B lap in from the qualifying. I think you did a pretty clean lap at the practice on your lap 4. But we may put our race B lap also up later. This is just the basics. And how about we, Tapani, meet the track on some qualifying and then basically run qualifying laps each out on the track at the same time, and then maybe we should touch one last thing after that. We should maybe touch on how do you race this car, how do you overtake and so on and so forth, draft and so on. But let's go on that later. For now, let's get some qualifying laps in.
Do you have the setup done?
Yeah, I changed it as you mentioned.
Right, so I'll have a pretty close one, maybe a bit different. Okay. I reduced the wing a little. Ride heights are probably much the same. I used 13 liters of fuel to get the few laps in.
Yeah. I used 9 liters of fuel, 9.1.
Right.
Put the ARB down at 2, and maybe even at soft as it goes on. So you can adjust from the car. You can see here you can soft to. I have it mapped on the wheel, but you can also use the mouse to control it, or you can map it on the keyboard as well. Whatever you may prefer. It actually also responds to the normal command, same as you would adjust the fuel, for example, in your keyboard. So you can just go left or right, and it responds that way. So even though it looks like a drop down, it isn't really a drop down. Brake bias, something I will also talk about as it goes on. I prefer a rear-based brake bias, and you can adjust that as well. You can also adjust the front ARB, so there's a couple of adjustments that you can make as the race goes on. So if you're not happy with the car, or if the car is suddenly getting too understeer, too oversteer, you can use the ARBs to adjust to that. So Tapani, more front ARB equals more understeer roughly, and more rear ARB equals more oversteer.
Yeah, and there's a slight difference in which part of the corner the effect is. So the front ARB changes affects more in the turn-in phase of the corner, and a rear ARB change in the exit.
Yeah. And so, how do you differentiate between understeer and oversteer? Well, I will answer that one. It's oversteer when you hit the wall rear first, and it's understeer when the front hits first. So, that's a pretty easy one. So yeah, you can actually feel the cold tires right now as you go out on the track.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad on high fuel load, but this qualifying load, I spun on in maggot spaghetti coming out of pit, so.
Then again, you're getting old. Must be rough. I didn't spin, but I was taking it too carefully anyway, so...
Yeah, I was trying to push early on, it wasn't... Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
The race start is pretty hairy, so just take it easy and very careful in the throttle.
Yeah, that's one thing that we actually didn't talk about too much. Cold tires and race start, as I went wide, really wide. Probably broke the underbody actually, but... the cold tires, they are not as slippery as much as they can be unpredictable. What do you say?
Yeah, when you go on throttle, the rear can snap.
Yeah. And that is a term we use a lot, snap. Especially, even in Finnish. We would say snappy in Finnish. It's the same as in English, but snapping rear, that's something that doesn't really need an explanation, because every driver knows what it means when the rear snaps. It just suddenly loses grip. And that can be, well,
yeah,
unfortunate.
With cold tires, if you go over the lateral grip limit, it just loses pretty much everything, so... And limit is hard to know, so you have to always do a bit of experimenting in practice going out of pits.
Yeah.
And you learn how it works in the race.
Yeah, and at Silverstone you have also 2 pit exits. That's one important thing to note. You have 2 pit exits in a sense that you have the left one and the right one that you can take right after the pit exit.
Pit exit lanes, yeah.
Yeah. So in a race I would actually recommend using the right one, unless you're absolutely clear that nobody will come out. Because it doesn't cost you really any time, and there is a really fast corner right before it, the first corner of this track. I believe it's Cops, no?
What?
Cops is the name of the first corner in Silverstone.
Nah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's Cops. Last one is Woodcote, I know that, but... So, once you come out of there, really use the safer one. Same thing as in Phillip Island, you want to use the safer one. Although in this race, the thing is that some people could be actually pitting. Myself, personally, I'm not sure. I might do it, actually.
Yeah, I don't know either. I have to check the lap times.
Yeah. But some people might be pitting, some might not be, so it actually might be relevant, especially in qualifying. It's relevant. You don't want to ruin anyone's lap by coming out of the pit lane.
If it's 64 laps and you want to make 1 pit stop, it's so around 30 laps of extra fuel in the start. That's probably more than a second in lap times. It'd be 2, I don't know. So if it's 2, you probably want to pit. If it's 1, maybe not.
There is also this thing that we often don't really talk about, or we haven't really talked about as such when it comes to pitting, and that is the ride heights. Of course you want the car as low as possible without hitting the ground, so the pitting will help with that. But then again, it's also an extra risk, because there's always a lot of things that can go wrong. This car doesn't have a pit speed limiter, for example, so you can go over the speed limit, get a black flag, you have to pit again. There's a lot of other things, you can get stuck in traffic, and it's higher risk perhaps, but it could be a higher reward. It's something that people will really have to decide for themselves. It's something we don't take an official stance for either way, because it's not really covering the basics of Lotus 79 as much as race strats, and of course we at Inertia Sim Racing have our own and definitely best race strats, which we will not share with anyone, so you can suck on that if you want.
Well, it's quite the strategy. Well, if you calculate the lap time differences and how many laps are there, to run with that difference, it's pretty easy to estimate how much time you kind of lose in a pit stop before it's not worth it.
Tapani, I'm 2 seconds slower than you.
What?
Yeah, I'm 2 seconds slower than you.
Right.
So, wasn't much of use for me to go
I'm spinning.
Yeah, and I probably broke the car on the outlap, but anyway, what I did here, I wasn't really concentrating on putting a full-on qualifying lap anyway. It's good to make the excuses out of the way now, but... so, what I was really doing here, really wanting to do here, show to the people, is how it handles roughly from a driver's perspective, and what is roughly the line one should take, and so on and so forth. We watched also on a board of view earlier, and we will do that now as well. Just see how you handle these corners and so on and so forth. Bloody microphone not saving the settings again. I should remember to adjust that one before I kill everyone's ears all of a sudden, because that Cosworth, it screams, boy. It's not a hybrid engine. High-pitched scream. So, that's qualifying. 1:28 roughly. What are we thinking will be the final qualifying lap times, pole time? High
27s.
Yeah, high 26s, low 27s maybe? You think? In a fully optimized setup, of course.
Oh, let me see. Let me put this last one in, so...
So it's a pole time. That's some confidence, man.
Turn 1, pretty good.
Yeah, that was good. Let's see Untitled Chapter now.
Oh, that was a bit tight to the last right-hander.
Yeah, and it can really mess you up once you get one part, because it's a 3-part corner really. Well, 4-part, but 3 parts that are important. Once you get one part wrong, you go into fast, you can mess up the whole sequence. And as a result, also the run up to the hangar straight once you come into stow. But it's a good recovery. I mean, stow was pretty good. Then flat out through the left-hander, right? Yep.
Oh, a bit wide.
This is...
The car's a bit loose.
You can adjust the ARB, unless you have done so already.
Nah.
The Tapani way. You know, he would have done it, but now that I said it, he won't. That's one of the more insane things if you're a new driver. Watching on board of Lotus 79, as I'm talking here. I'm probably messing up Tapani's concentration. Anyway, you can take some places flat out which you wouldn't have even dreamed of doing in some other cars. It's just, there is so much downforce. And the faster you go, due to the ground effect...
Oh, 28.0.
That's a nice lap. That's a nice lap. That's something...
Yeah, a bit loose in some points, but...
can you save the B lap of that one? Just for other people. Something to aim for in qualifying.
Well, I don't know where I can find that.
I have no idea either. There's dash for the B lap, so I guess it's the one that saves in your iRacing folder.
Yeah, sure.
So, that's out of the way. One last thing before we end this one. Oh, it's been 44 minutes, we're just talking about... It's a podcast, really. So, it's a video podcast that we've done without... let me just say, we just went out on a whim for this one. We didn't have any plans, really, just talking about going as we go. So, no script, no anything. So, let's put the race setup on. And how about Tapani, we do a couple of laps of jostling about. Just driving about, having a bit of a race with the two of us, so people can see how this car handles in a race situation. You said 131 liters, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to reduce the wing. Like one shift click.
Okay, so 5.3 at the rear, and do you also touch the front one?
Yeah, you probably won't, because otherwise it's going to be pretty loose.
So a shift click front, shift click rear.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah. So 4.5 at the front and 5.3 at the rear with still 0.5 weaker. And I'm going to... Well, I'm not going to touch that one actually, because we are supposed to demonstrate the setup. Already I was like, hey, I want to adjust a couple of things with this car. I haven't done any laps with the race field, but I want to adjust some things already.
Yeah, regarding wings, there's usually a quite broad range of wing angles you can use and get pretty much the same lap times. But in the race, you usually want to go and use the lower end of that unless you think you need some support from extra downforce.
Yeah. You said it was understeering, so should we increase the rear and roll bars for the race setup? Maybe something like 4 or 5?
Yeah, that's a thing you can do just in car or otherwise.
Yeah. So I did that in car right now, just checking how that works. Come out on track already. I'm waiting.
Yeah, let's see. Ready?
Yeah, ready, go. So I will be just chasing and analyzing your driving and so on and so forth. Hold tires at the start, and this is something you really have to get the feel for. This is the proper exit, by the way, that we are using right now. Oh, we also have someone else out there. That's nice. So...
And this is also coming out of throttle. Can be quite surprising how the grip goes in very cold tires, but after a few corners it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. Other thing that I didn't really touch that I should touch right now, dirty air. Do we have dirty air much in this car?
Yeah, but not as much as in modern cars, because most of the downforce is from the underbody, which is not affected that much. And you get a nice draft in the slipstream if you're close enough.
Yeah, it's about 0.6 seconds, 0.5 roughly. Half a second maybe. That's a really bad measurement, but I always know it's 0.6 seconds roughly, which you should be aiming at. So you can actually see if I'm getting closer to Tapani here, that I'm getting draft once I'm close enough on the big straights. And it's... yeah, go on.
In high-speed corners, the dirty air can be smooth, a bit something.
That's a hacks line, come on. I'm going to put my brake bias more towards the rear as I'm adjusting here. Maybe 44.5, that should be good. Oh! It's a lot of understeer.
You need... well, if you just drove the qualifying setup, which is like 100 kilograms lighter.
Yeah.
The fastnesses are very different. You don't feel it so much in the slow ones, but of course you do feel it somewhat. But in a high speed one, under the bridge is terrible with high fuel load.
Yeah, so I just put the, what I did here just now, I put the ARB to 6 instead of 5 on the rear. So that is, you can do that in a race, it's alright, because you can adjust it. Just be careful with the adjustments, of course, that it's not too snappy all the time. Especially after a couple of laps once the tires heat up and so on. But that's a lot of things that you can do with this car to adjust this car in a race situation. And once you follow under the car, you will feel that over a second away it's fine to follow someone really. There's no dirty air, no nothing, it handles normal. And it's also pretty straightforward in the sense that once you get the draft, it's quite a lot, really. It's not just a little bit faster straight line speed, it can be quite effective. And also in a sense something that you should use to overtake. But during overtaking, with the Lotus 79, what I found to be one of the things I have to be most careful with is hitting the bumps once you change the line. So, for example, if you're drafting behind someone, you have to go off your usual line. There can be bumps there. And this car bottoms out over the bumps and you lose speed. So that's a lot of... You can lose a lot of speed, you can even damage the car that way. So that's something you have to be careful for. And it's a good idea usually, Tapani, isn't it, to scout the track really. Go like here, see what it's like. So you don't go into the race and you find out suddenly that, okay, I cannot go as much to the inside as I would want to. or just trying the overtaking lines, trying the alternative lines, not just the optimal racing line. Nope, I think he's in the race mode. Okay. Getting no respond. Tapani.exe is not responding.
What?
Nothing. Nothing, I think it made a point. It's just talking about alternative lines and overtaking.
Yeah, sure. You want to get in front?
No, not really, no. Well, I would, but I will have to do that by driving. Oh, okay.
No, I'll do that.
Ah!
If I wouldn't spawn. I touched the grass there.
I'll wait for you. Okay,
yeah.
So let's
go.
put a couple of laps of battle and just talking about the attacking and defending with the Lotus 79. Okay, I'm going full throttle now. I got Tapani on my rear. You can see him on the relative, you can see him on the mirror as well there. And I'm just driving as best as I can, and we are pretending that it's a race situation.
What of understeer behind you? We're in judge of my ARB a little. I didn't earlier, so now's a good time, Sonny.
Have to be really precise there, because this is the best overtaking spot on the track. The hangar straight. It's a long one, but the corner isn't as tight as it should be really for optimal overtaking. And it's easy to miss it as well. So you have to get to the throttle early, exiting it, but not too early because it can be really deceiving how it just tightens in the end. Or well, it doesn't tighten, it's a constant radius. It doesn't open up as you would expect. And here we go flat out once again. You can see Tapani catching up as we are going flat out here because he's getting draft, braking a little bit here, taking a wide line even though he's right behind me because there's no point defending to that one. It's not really an overtaking position as such. Even though if you're brave you can go there, it's fine. Keeping it steady in the last corners, just keeping a good line, concentrating on the exits and just getting on the throttle. I'm a little bit too anxious still getting on the throttle. You can see that I'm dabbing the throttle, which is something you may not want to do actually with this car. And here is Tapani looking to the inside. I'll try to defend to the outside. So leaving him room on the entry and on the exit getting alongside.
It's a difficult place to pass and I was in a orbit, so I...
And there we go, we managed to fool him. He's coming back and he's hitting me.
Well,
that was an excellent demonstration. Well done. How Finns race. One corner side by side and then we crash.
Oh, let me see. I was having some sort of brain fade and forget to slow down to the right-hander.
Yeah, but anyway, you can see pretty much how these cars race usually. You can race these cars really well. You can take the inside, you can take the outside. And one thing to remember is that, one thing one should really remember is that you're not ahead, even though you got the inside. There's a guy on the outside, he can still get a good run. And as you can see, we were neck on neck coming into maggots. There. We were really side by side. I slowed down to avoid hitting you, held my line, you went a little bit wider. And then you hit the grass and hit me. But in general, because I was actually slowing down and looking where you are, which is a mistake. But anyway, you can race these cars pretty well.
Yeah, it's a great racing car. If your race pace is around the same as the guy in front, you can still challenge him.
Yeah. Was there anything else we had? Racing this car with a bad demonstration showing that we are humans too.
Yeah, well, I took so horrible line for that right-hander.
Yeah.
I was kind of was looking at the mirror and I thought you were closer than I thought, so I kind of...
Objects in mirror are closer than they appear, maybe.
Yeah, so I just corrected unnecessarily, and my line was terrible after that.
Yeah. So braking, no ABS and no traction control. So there's not really anything you should know electronically about the car, is there?
No, it's very straightforward.
So we have a race lap, we have a qualifying B lap, we have a setup, race and qualifying setup. You got those saved?
Well, I don't know how it goes, but I suppose there are 7.
Okay, let's send them to the Pacific Majors. Pacific Majors staff, and they can then distribute them onwards and forwards. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I think that's it. The session is actually over too. So I hope you enjoyed the stream. We did about 55 minutes of talking about the Lotus 79. We covered, let's recap on what we covered. First few minutes, just taking an old race setup and creating a setup, creating a baseline setup. Then we went through the setup itself, how it handles. We looked at a couple of laps from Tapani race lap, just getting to know the car, kind of tentative at first, you know, just trying to get a feel for the car. We covered turning race setup into a qualifying setup. We covered the aerodynamics of the car, and we covered a bit of racing with the car, as well as the differences and the adjustments you can make during the race. So I think that's actually a pretty good recap and a summary of, in roughly under 1 hour, of how the Lotus 79 is as a car, what are the things you should know about, and some of the basics as well. Do you have anything to add? No, that's good. So
No, I don't think
okay.
so.
So I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoy the Pacific Majors Classic British Grand Prix, which will be coming up on Pacific region 8th of July, international region, sorry. International 8th of July 2018, and for other regions it will be the 15th of July 2018 for the other guys that will be not racing in international regions. It will be go to www.pacificmajors.com/British GP for more information on the race. It will be covered by GSRC, Racebot TV, LSR TV, as well as V8 Online. And remember also to like and subscribe those guys, their channels, and so forth and so on. I'm Ossian Puhakka. I was joined by the always wonderful Tapani Linnaluoto. Thank you for watching, and have yourself a very nice rest of the weekend.
Cheers.